Breastie. Hi, friends. Hi, it's so nice to see everyone, and nothing feels like career in camp like a thunderstorm and like running in our boots and our heels and our cozies. It's really, really wonderful to be with all of you this afternoon, and I'm thrilled to have outstanding panelists with me. This session is about your career and navigating purpose, and I'm actually more interested in you before I share anything about me. How many of you are like struggling in your work or your professional life right now? Raise your hand. Okay, few, more than a few. How many of you, since your diagnoses, has made a pivot in your professional life? And how many of you want to make a pivot in your professional life? Okay, at least more than half. You're done. It's okay to be done, because cancer, right, it changes your mindset. And I'm so excited to be joined by incredible fellow Breasties. We all come from different professional backgrounds: advocacy, corporate America, chemistry. My name is Lindsey, and I'm a nonprofit professional, and I'm a triple negative survivor and a GYN previvor, and was diagnosed in the middle of COVID, which I know there's lots of other faces that had to do that. But for me, I made a big pivot. I was a COO of a nonprofit. I was technically thriving in my job, but I'll never forget about 3 days after my diagnosis, waking up at 3 in the morning and saying, fuck, pardon my language, but I messed up. I'd gone straight A's in school, I was a young COO, I was doing all the right things, and I felt like crap. And I wanted to rethink my life. Life is short. I don't have to tell that to any of you. So I quit my job. I said I was going to take a year off to eat, pray, love. That did not happen. That wasn't realistic for me either, but a girl can dream. I did take a little bit of time off, and I started my own nonprofit consulting practice. But all four of us have had different pivots, and I'm really, really excited to introduce Jeanelle, Allie, and Elle. And I'm going to take a seat and join you guys. And we just want this to be conversational. The nice thing with the rain is did you guys get to meet a Breastie you hadn't met yet? Okay, I see nodding heads. So I'd love to hear from our panelists. I know all of you have made different pivots in your careers since diagnoses, but if you can share a little bit about your Breastie story, and what did you change in your career, either by necessity or by choice?
Hey guys, I'm Jeanelle. How y'all doing? Okay, so I cuss a lot, so just beware of that. I'm just warning you. So before cancer, so that's the question?
Yeah, before cancer, what did you do, and how did you pivot after?
Okay, so before cancer, I was actually an educator. I was an educator for about 10 years. Pandemic happened. I quit because my daughter was, virtually, and everything was just fucked up. So I quit. I said, I'm going to be like an artist. I'm going to do something, I don't know. I thought I was going to be like a Black Panther or an activist. I don't know, for real. So I'm just teaching art classes. I'm doing all this extra stuff. Freaking 18 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 3. And during that time, I was actually misdiagnosed that whole 18 months. So I felt like I was young, I'm Black, I'm from the hood, they didn't care. I don't know what I'm talking about, So I just was like, I have to start sharing my story. So I went on Instagram and I started sharing my story on Instagram. And then my husband said, why don't you reach out to some, council people or something, in the area so people can know about breast cancer. When I was in college, I interned with Cory Booker, so I kind of knew some people. And I was like, all right, I can do it. I did it with cannabis, so I said I could do it with this. I advocated for that. Let me try to do this. And I started doing it, and right now, it's totally different. I did not think that me, this girl from Newark, would do anything like this. I am the state legislator. I have now a contract with Cory Booker right now. Right now, we are boots on ground with Medicaid, okay? Last week, it was just denied from the Senate. One person denied it from the Senate. But next week, we're going back, and we want, obviously, my main concern is cancer research. And for people where I come from, I don't ever want nobody to go through nothing that I went through. So, like, I was saying to my girls, I don't feel like this is a career, you know? This is like, I'm just talking my shit, you know? And I just kind of know I have a little background and a little something, something, but yeah. So, yeah.
It's hard to follow. Such an amazing story. So for me, I'm Allie. Pre-cancer diagnosis, I was working for a textile startup. I had been with them for, I don't know, almost 10 years at that point. I was the third employee. We had 350 employees at that point. I had spent a few years in Germany, starting our factory there. I was back on the U.S. team, leading our like home textile and like home goods that we were making on demand, and really, you know, doing some cool stuff in the textile space. And then February 26, 2020, I find out I have ovarian cancer. And so that really changed my perspective, especially going through it, I'm sure like a lot of you, through the pandemic. But chemo followed, surgery, and during that, you know, I have a sewing background. I ended up making a shirt for myself because I just couldn't find what I wanted to wear. And I thought that would be that. Like, okay, I'm done with treatment. I'm moving on with my life. Like, you know, trying to put it in the rearview mirror, which I'm sure you can all relate on how that's like nearly impossible. Um, and so fast forward 2 years later, I had been cleared to do IVF. I had my son. And that really, you know, was like, whoa, what am I doing here? I'm like, and at that point, the company I was with had been acquired by a giant company. So you can imagine, like, everything changes after that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, I have this newborn baby. I'm like working my ass off for this company who now really doesn't care about anything but profit margins. Um, what am I doing? And I had continued to think about that shirt that I had made and other people who are having this experience, and like, you know, just this shared frustration that maybe they might be having. And so that was really kind of the catalyst for me to try and pursue this, to try and, you know, if it's one person whose chemo journey I make a little less stressful, then, you know, that will be great. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I started and how cancer has really shaped and had a pivot in my career to be where I am now.
And these are her socks
Yes.
right here. It's them.
Can I get some of those socks, please? Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Elle. So my background, as Lindsay mentioned, is in chemistry. And I'm 10 years into what has been a very corporate career. I started my career, I was fresh out of school, I wanted to travel, I moved to the Middle East and started my career there with a global company. And the rest is history. I traveled, I adventured, I moved to the US under the same career. I was the first one in, last one out, was infamous for working through my lunch break. And I took a lot of pride in that. I worked really hard to get to where I was. And I had a promotion incoming that I had worked a long time for, I was really excited about. And I got my cancer diagnosis. And suddenly all of those things I'd been working so hard for felt really, really meaningless to me in that moment. I realized I'd put so much energy into this space, but actually that company has 10 people waiting to take my job if something happens to me. And I was no longer able to keep up with that standard I'd set for myself. I was no longer able to work so hard and put in the hours because I was going through so much with treatment and surgeries and all the rest of it. So I really had to take a step back and think about what was important to me, how I wanted to spend the rest of my days, however many there were, and how I was going to change things because it wasn't sustainable. So that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Well, I'm sure you can hear from everyone's intros, we all have really different backgrounds, and it was wonderful as we connected before camp. There were so many common threads and also some differences. So, Elle, I'm actually going to ask you first, but I want to ask all three of you, how has how you define success changed since you've been diagnosed?
Oh my goodness. So much. So I used to really define success. I took a lot of pride in being tired. I'd get to the weekend and be like, I have had a week. I have worked my butt off. I am exhausted, but I did that presentation, or like whatever the corporate jargon is. So for me, that's really changed. My corporate life is still very present. You know, I really encourage people to find something that works for them, but I monitor the energy I put into my work life so I can invest my personal life into things that I'm really passionate about and I have a lot more control over. I can choose and decide exactly how I want to spend the extra energy I have from taking a step back at work. So success used to look like working really, really hard, ticking a box and then moving on to the next thing. Whereas for me now, it's actually getting through the week and having a lot of energy, enjoying my weekend, taking on an extra hobby, skill, maybe preparing to speak at a panel at the Breasties, like putting my time and energy into things that are really important and meaningful for me. So it's definitely been a big change.
Well, Allie said something on a call, and it's very similar. So for me, it's my daughter, obviously. But I felt like success, I felt like I thought I did everything right? I went to college, I went to Ivy League college, I did all this stuff, and, I'm doing all this great stuff, and then cancer came, and it's like, none of that shit fucking mattered, honestly. It does not matter. What matters is waking up, taking my daughter to school, going to her shows, showing up, just being there, being happy, being present. I feel like success for me now is being here, just being here and being alive. I'm alive now, so that's success to me.
Yeah, I think I would echo that as well. Like being present, being alive. I still struggle with it a lot between like, oh, I'm going to be this great entrepreneur, but also like I want to spend time with my son while he's young and like enjoys being around me. And so it's really been a struggle to find like the right balance. But I think something that I have learned with lots of sessions with my therapist, who I've seen since diagnosis 5 years ago, is about like just taking a beat and like pausing and reevaluating. And it's something I'm always doing. It's so easy to get caught up in like the little things, but just trying to step back and say like, hey, like, what am I doing this for? Like, and it's something honestly lately, like when I've been putting my son to bed, he just turned 3 and he's at such a fun stage and like just loving reading, and every night now getting to just read a couple books with him. And it's something that I used to be like, oh my God, like let's be done with this. I'm tired, like just get in your bed. But now I'm trying to really just savor those moments and like, yes, like let's read one more book, like, and just really trying to like, I don't know, just reframe like what is important.
Thank you. How many of you guys have heard of the term glimmers? Anyone? I see some nodding heads. This, in you reading to your son or you taking your daughter to school reminds me of that like, I think sometimes we want these like big grand moments, but like what about that like sweet moment where he like asks you to read a second book, or your child is like, oh my God, you're at my performance. Thank you. I see you.
Like, my daughter's 11, so she still likes me. She's not gonna like me in probably next year. So I have to, get this time in now.
Absolutely. So a lot of us, I imagine, I know we were at the DEI panel this morning, and I was so glad. I think it was Michelle was her name, but is Michelle here? Hi. She asked a wonderful question, so thank you. And I'm just going to paraphrase, but along the lines of like kind of purpose and redefining your purpose, and also like those boundaries and like what do you do and how do you talk to your employers? And thank you for that segue, because one thing I wanted to ask you about, we don't all have the luxury just to leave our job, right? Like health insurance matters, even if it's under threat. Like it will always matter. We have bills to pay, families to feed, clothes to buy, Camp Breastie to come to. But in all seriousness, like, I understand, and we all understand that, like, many of you can't just like leave your job. So we want to recognize that I do think pivots are possible, both in your current job to pivot that. It might even just be talking to HR, right? It might be switching roles within your company. I know Elle had that experience. But I'm curious, how have you guys made boundaries, either in your own new role, in the past? How have you had to advocate for yourself as cancer survivors, all with different stories? And how do you show up, and how would you recommend to your fellow Breasties that we can all do that and kind of keep that energy that we also want to hold and we all cherish and respect?
Well, I feel like I've always advocated for myself. Like, I've never not spoken my mind about anything. So that's never really been an issue for me. But I think now, so right now, the position I'm in now, basically, they know, because I'm doing this because of my experience, right? Because of my background, the education, and then obviously my personal experience. So they understand and they know, but also I make sure, don't call me, email me, because I don't want to talk. I would rather you just email me. I can't talk, I'm sorry. You know, it's just, I feel like certain things, for me, like, you have to just let them know from the beginning, because if you don't tell them in the beginning, then they're just gonna, oh no, she's okay, she'll be okay. No, tell them, hey, I need like an extra 5 minutes to get to this place, to that place, because, you know, I am tired. You know, I went through some shit. So, you know, but yeah, I just feel like, speak up for yourself. Tell them in the beginning.
So one of the things is I really did struggle to adjust, right? Because I had this very high output and very high expectations for myself. And I say for myself because I would say in hindsight, no one was putting more pressure on than me, actually. So I started when I was getting stuff coming in. I would encourage you to look at your workload as a whole, whatever that might be. And I would say if it was something I wanted to say yes to, because I also had to learn how to say no, it was much easier to say, I am working on all of these things. I can do this new thing, but something else here has to go. And that was much easier for me than saying, no, I can't do it, I don't have room on my plate. Or sometimes I'd be excited to take on something new, and it would be hard to say no. So I would encourage you to look at your workload as a whole. And also, it doesn't hurt when you're looking at all of those things that you're doing, you're also reminding other people that you're contributing value in a lot of ways. I put a lot of boundaries in place on myself, so arriving and leaving, not being worried about getting something done and getting in half an hour earlier, staying 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, just getting it done. I would say, no, I can leave. The work will still be here tomorrow. If I was struggling to take lunch breaks, I would make myself something I was really excited about eating. I would make plans with a friend from work to go out for lunch. Maybe we go to Chipotle. Maybe we just sit in the courtyard and we eat together. But then I have a commitment and a reason to sit down and take the space. So if I can't take it for myself, I can take it for someone else because I've committed to do that. So just making sure in my day-to-day I put boundaries in place is a much easier, small way to start making those positive changes rather than looking big picture and trying to make a really drastic change.
Yeah, so I would say I was not good at like any of that when I was going through chemo, and that's one thing like retrospectively I would have done differently. And anytime someone like is like, "Oh no, I've just been diagnosed," and I'm like, "Well, if you get time, take it." Like even if you maybe don't want to, like I could have taken time, and unless you knew, I don't think people, like a lot of people not on my team, probably had no idea. I mean, I didn't have hair, that was probably a good indicator, but otherwise, like I was there. I was, I mean, we were all remote at the time, but still, like, I mean, the whole company was pivoting with COVID, and all of a sudden we're making masks, and I launched like 4 mask products in like 2 months, which usually it would take us a year to launch a product. It was crazy. But I think since then, and like looking back at that, I've gotten better at doing things like, yeah, taking a lunch break and just setting boundaries and learning to say, not necessarily no, even though I'm 100% here for saying no, like just say no, but sometimes not right now, or I'll have to reprioritize, or whatever it is, ways to just set boundaries and like hold them is something that I've really had to learn. And like you said, plan a lunch date, do something, fix something that you're excited about. Just take that time for yourself.
Absolutely. And one thing that stood out when we had our call was, for me, similar to you guys or a couple of you, is I worked all throughout chemo. And definitely, if any of you are in active treatment or pre-vivers or survivors or thrivers and are about to have surgery, take that time, especially if you get it. I brought my laptop to every single round of chemo, all 16. And the joke was they're going to like sanitize my laptop for the OR. And I was like, yeah. And everyone's like, cool. And I'm like, that wasn't cool. Like, that was not cool. And I wish I could tell myself, like, put down your computer, like, feel what you're going through. It's scary, but like, you need to come first. And the comment, you want to show up good for work. Like, we all love what we do. And like, no one's going to care about your life and your health and your mental health more than you. I want to switch gears a little bit, and in a few moments we're going to go to questions, but 2 final questions for you guys. What's something that helped you like take that leap, right? For people that maybe want to pivot in their company, people that maybe want to advocate differently or get involved in advocacy, people that want to be an entrepreneur, people want to grow in their own company, like what's something that helped you like make that pivot or shift, whether it was in your mental like way of how you approached your work or the actual thing that you were doing? Maybe Allie, either way.
For me, it was motherhood. And I was, blessed to be in a position where I could take that jump. And I imagined it was going to be a temporary, stay home with my son for a little bit of time and then figure out what came next. I was also naive and thinking like, oh, I'm home with my son, I'll launch a business. Like, this will be fine. It wasn't. But yeah, I mean, motherhood for me, like I can just remember sitting there, I did get 3 months of like maternity leave, which, unfortunately in some instances that's really great in this country. And as that was coming to an end, I'm like, shit, like I'm gonna have to like leave my little baby and go back to this company that like they don't care if I'm there or not. And I'm 2 years out from diagnosis, and so the thought of recurrence is constantly in the back of my mind, thinking like, okay, maybe I don't have a lot of time with my son and I'm gonna dedicate it to this place, like but I was also at a point in my career where I was pretty burnt out, and so it all kind of just like I felt like that's what I was meant to do, and it was scary as hell, but I'm on the other side, still figuring things out. But yeah.
Oh, okay. So for me, I feel like I didn't know, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing was advocating, right? I didn't know. I was just talking. I was just sharing my story. So when I started to work with the mayor and I started to work with senators and things like that, I was like, wait, I actually like this. I could do this. They like me for me? Okay. So, yeah, I feel like the whole like cancer journey and then everything like shifted for me. Yeah, I don't know. Was that good? I don't know. What was the... So yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I would say my biggest wake-up call came in therapy, which makes sense. So I was having therapy after being diagnosed, and I was so worried. I was worried for work and falling behind. I was worried for my friends, and I had this image in my head that I was calling them because it was around Christmas time. They'd be on their way to a Christmas party, and I'd tell them, and I'd ruin their night. My cancer ruined their night. I was worried about my family. I was worried about the poor woman I cried to in Trader Joe's. And I was so worried about everybody and everything. And my therapist, in her very kind and gentle way, said, let's work on getting you to your top 3 in your priority list. And I thought, wow, I'm not even top 3. I was bottom of the list. Everyone was first. I was really at the bottom. And that was a wake-up call for me, because if I'm not top of my own priority list, I'm certainly not top of anyone else's. So that was a real wake-up call to me. I realized it was really sad that this professional therapist was like, we're going to spend some time trying to get you to top 3. So that was a wake-up call for me, and I decided to start putting myself first.
Thank you all. I'm going to do one last question, and then we really want to spend some time in community and talking with you guys, especially because we have a little bit of a smaller group. Jeanelle, I'm going to ask you first. But what's like a word or a phrase, a piece of advice for people that want to pivot? Again, it might be in your current job, it might be in an extra activity. What's something you would encourage people that are like want to take that leap, find something with deeper purpose, find their purpose?
I'm gonna get deep. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. That's it. Okay? Don't question nothing. You fucking are fighting cancer. You fought cancer. You could do anything. Okay? That's it. But yeah, that's it.
I think also, like, don't be afraid to just keep evolving. Like, make that decision, but like keep going. Like, maybe you leave your job and you do something else and you like take this big risk and then you don't like it or whatever. Like, I think a lot of times, at least for me, it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing and I'm in it and like I'm committed and I hate it, but I'm committed. But like, fuck that. Like, you know what? Do something else. Like, keep evolving, keep pivoting, like figure out what your purpose is or your passion, or you know what? Maybe your job's just your job, and outside of it, like you have this full life. I think it's so easy to get so wrapped up and like you are who your job is, and like there's so much outside of work. So, yeah.
I love the concept of your job can just be your job. So I am in awe of people who've pivoted in their careers and done incredible things after cancer. I think that is wonderful. I am incredibly grateful for those people. And I would say that I'm not one of them. I had to keep working my job that is fine. It's good enough. I have good days and bad days. But sometimes you have to prioritize good health insurance, flexible hours, a job near your family. And all of those things are fine. Like, that's important. You've done enough. You're still doing so much. It's okay for your job just to be your job. And I just took a step back at work so that I had energy to do things that I was really excited about outside of work, and that I could do my job without exhausting myself all the time. So that would be my one piece of advice. A job can just be a job. And my cheesy mantra that I would leave you with, if you're thinking about making a change, the best time to make a change was yesterday. The second best time to make a change is today.
Well, I can't speak better than that. So I'm going to open up to Q&A, and we have, I think, about 15 minutes with Q&A, or 10. Someone give me a little wink, or... Yeah. Okay. Yep. And also, we'll make sure we get off. Okay. She's going to give us some time. Can I pass a mic to someone, and you guys pass it around? Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, friend. You said 12. Thank you. Thanks, team. Awesome. Who has the first question?
Hi guys. So I, like a lot of you, worked through active treatment. I am a C-suite executive in a corporate job. So I've had to like also prioritize like healthcare and being remote and things like that. So I have found with trying to step back that my job doesn't really want that to happen. Like in the sense where I'm responsible for so many things. And, like it'll be like, oh, well, Lindsay forgot this again. Or, it's like because I have chemo brain and someone might, say something to me in passing and then I like don't remember what the fuck they said. And they're like, where is this project? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I was wondering, one, if you guys had advice on like how you navigate things post-cancer, like workarounds that you have, or things where like if you have to stay in a job, like how do you make that work for you when you can't work at the same level that you did before? So yeah, that's.
I would say, of course, they don't want you to step back, right? Why would they have you step back if you paid as one person are doing the job of 5 people? That's why I think advocating and knowing what you need is so important, because to this big corporation company, it can be the best corporation in the world, but they're there to make money. So if you have been performing at a certain level, it is really, really hard to take a step back. And I fully empathize. It's not an easy discussion to have. I would encourage you, like we were speaking about earlier, to map out everything you're doing and have a conversation about what can go, what can be delegated, how much time you spend on each thing, to really illustrate exactly what you're doing, because nobody knows exactly what you're doing day to day. Even if you work very closely with someone, they don't know exactly what you're doing. And I would also encourage you to find your cheerleaders within the organization. So when I was first diagnosed, my manager was just not a good people person. He was a fantastic chemist, not a great people person. But I had a mentor, someone I trusted a lot, who kind of had some of those early difficult conversations for me. And I can't say enough how helpful and important that was. So I think, firstly, map out everything you're doing so that everybody knows. Take a step back and see if there's things that can go, and then find your team of cheerleaders who can help you within your organization. And that might not be within your direct team or line manager, but that would be my suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And I'm just going to add one thing, and then we'll go there, and then one back. HR can be really tricky. How many of you had trouble talking with HR in your companies, either now or in the past? Okay. Some, not everyone, which is good. Ideally, HR is always there, human resources to support, and a lot of them are, but sometimes they're not. So as someone that's done some HR in my career, my one advice if you are struggling is document. If someone is not hearing, you need to document what the conversation was, what the tone was, what was the context, was it an email? Hopefully you never have to look at those documents again and it was just one bad day at work. But if a bad day at work becomes a pattern and you need to advocate, call a Breastie. If you trust your HR, call an HR, find that mentor within the org. But I do always really encourage people to document if you're having trouble in your current role. So, next question.
Okay, can you hear me? Oh, God. Hi, I'm Caroline. This is a little bit niche and won't apply to everybody, but I'm stage 4 and was in a very intense corporate job and enrolled in an MBA program, and it just wasn't tenable. I did accommodations, went to a condensed work week, tried part-time, and even with part-time, because the side effects of ongoing treatment were so unpredictable, it couldn't work. And it's left me really unsure, like lost. I feel like I have all this stuff to give, but I don't really feel like I can find an avenue to give it. And I'm just curious if you guys or anybody has figured that out.
I feel like that's something I still struggle with, is like, is this what I should be doing? And so, I mean, without knowing much more, I don't know if there's ways for you to just like explore more, like try new things, try like whatever your interests are, just like, even if it's taking a class, like a art class or whatever, I don't know what it is. But I have found like, for me, for a long time, it was like everything I did, I just had to take it really seriously, and like that was it. trying to just find space to like explore whatever it might be you're interested in and see how that kind of evolves and what it can become. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I haven't found it either. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm in the same way.
I was gonna say connects with Michelle's question earlier too, because the one piece I kind of missed, which you like really stressed, was purpose. Like, and that's the title of this session. Like, what is purposeful to you, right? And that's like what you're good at, with what you love and value, kind of align in that perfect center. And I think that takes, a lifetime and is always evolving. One area we haven't talked a ton about is like volunteering in nonprofits, and that's my career background. And I would say, and we know from the Breasties and other, cancer groups we might be a part of, but all nonprofits need help, right? So volunteering can be really meaningful. And right now in this economy, there are, and feel free afterwards to chat with me, there's a lot more part-time work or like contracted work. So there might be opportunities to like try something out, right? Go volunteer, maybe serve on a board. But I think doing some of that gig economy work can be an interesting way to like try it. And one of you said like, you can pivot. It's not like you have to pick a thing and do it forever, try it. But I think that purpose thing is a big thing, and I think something we're all still figuring out.
I feel like we're definitely all still trying to figure that out. That's not something that, you have to go through it to get through it. So,
I would also suggest that you take a really deep, hard look and think about what is your perfect job? What is your dream job? What field is it in? What interests you? What could your schedule look like? What accommodations do you need? Is there a subject matter that you're passionate about? So dream up your dream job, right? And then when you start looking, you can say, okay, this checks 3 out of 4 boxes, but box 4 is the deal breaker here. I can't do it without box 4. Forget about it. At least if you know what you really want to do, it's much easier to navigate the wealth of options and possibilities that are out there. And if you find that there's many things that tick all 4 boxes, is there a skill set or a qualification or a gap that you have that you need to get there? And how can you fill that gap? Because I think it's important to have a vision, and it can change, but just knowing where you want to go, I think is really helpful instead of looking at all the things that don't work, like what would work, what would be great for you. So that would be my advice.
There, in the purple, and then in the green. Nice and close to your mouth.
Okay. Oh. So I don't actually necessarily have a question, but I thought maybe I could just contribute a little bit.
Please.
So I am an HR consultant, and I've been working in HR for about 15 years, mostly Bay Area companies from 300 employees to, I would say, like very small startup, like 5. And I've learned a lot. And then being a survivor myself and going through the whole process during COVID, I mean, I see it from both sides. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding that your physicians can be your best friend in some of these situations. So for me, I've had a lot of people come forward with accommodation requests that, you'd be surprised if you take a copy of your job description with you to your provider and you say, I'm really struggling. Like, this brain fog is killing me. Like, I don't want to be punished for something that I don't have control over. I'm still doing my job. They can start that process for you. And there's also a lot of things that people just don't realize. There's job protection. There's federal job protection. There's different types of leaves and different components you can use, and you can get really creative with it as well. So I agree, document everything. I think it's really important. And then also, this day and age, companies are actually really terrified of legal action. I will say, I spend 99% of my time just making sure that we're being compliant with people that are coming forward with requests. Some of them are, I need to work from home 3 days a week. And it's never just no, there's a process to follow. And it's really important that if you feel that's going to be beneficial to you, that you go for it. Speak up. Find your champion internally who can get you and help you. And don't don't let anybody else in the company dictate that, especially a manager or someone who doesn't understand what you're going through. And you don't have to tell them anything. I mean, you can go and say, I have a medical condition and my doctor is recommending that I do this and this, still needs to be taken seriously. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
No, thank you. And it's great to know that we have an HR expert,
Yeah.
Breasties.
Get her
so-
number. Everybody get her number.
Yeah, right?
Get her number.
Use that network.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, I think this is time for our last question before we close out. Green, and then we can try to do two, and then we'll do two quickly. Green, and then Liz.
Hi, my name is Kirsty. I did have a question, but before I did, I wanted to just touch on the question from the Phillies hat. I don't know what your name, I didn't hear your name. There was a recommendation about figuring out what your ideal or dream job might be, but another kind of addition to that is if you're not finding it, create it. Ooh. And I noticed that you said you got your MBA, you have a business background. So even creating something, a product, a service, you kind of can control how much you're putting into that, and you don't need to go into every single thing saying this is going to be $1 million company. It can be something you're really passionate about, and there could be a hole in the market, and you could be really successful, and you define what that success is. So I just wanted to make that comment. And then my question is going to be, as an entrepreneur, as an executive, 3 years this year being cancer-free. When I was in the throes of it, thank you, stage 3C, triple negative, so triple negative baddies. But 3 years ago, I was crying to myself, telling me I was type A, I was overworked, I was my biggest critic, I put all the pressure on myself, I did everything, crying, saying, this will never matter. This is the wake-up call that I needed in life, and I will never go back. Fast forward 3 years, I'm constantly having to remind myself of those times and telling myself that I feel like I'm failing at that I told myself when I was crying back then. And that kind of like your new normal, how do you remind yourself? And for me, I actually don't have kids. I know that that's a very common answer. But what do you do when you're in your new normal and you're forgetting, and you're letting life kind of take hold, and you're not making the time, and you're not really going back to that time where you said you would prioritize yourself?
That's okay. That happens all the time. I made so many commitments to myself, and I struggle to keep them all the time. That's okay. Success can look differently at every stage, and I think just by having a vision of where you want to be, right? You're like, this is the behaviors I had, this is the behaviors I want to have going forward. That already is amazing. But instead of beating yourself up about it, I would encourage you to give yourself grace and say that, because there's that saying, it's like, it's not the first thought that counts, it's the second one. The first one is the one that's your knee-jerk reaction, that's what comes forward. The second one is what's important. So just giving yourself the time and the space, your type A brain might be like, I need to do 1 million things this weekend. But then you have the perspective, you take a break and you say, actually, I need a weekend for myself, or I need to be loosey-goosey this weekend and take it as it goes. And you can act on that. It's okay to have that first thought, but just giving yourself the grace that this is a time of flux, nothing is constant. It's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay to break those commitments. I can't tell you how many I've broken. And just give yourself grace. That would be my advice.
Thanks, Sal.
I'll just add on to that a little bit. I had a really hard time after chemo, like figuring out what I could do. Like I was used to like everything I could accomplish in a week pre-chemo. And then I don't know how many conversations, and I still have with my therapist, of like, I'm exhausted. And just finding that new like balance of what I can actually accomplish and finding, the courage to say no or to, reprioritize things, because at least for me still 5 years out, like I can't do the things that I could prior, and it's been a hard adjustment, and some weeks I feel like I'm great at it and other weeks I'm really disappointed by it, but just try and like go with the flow.
So I'm going to say final.
Ditto.
Yeah. Did you have something to add, Jeanelle?
I said ditto.
Ditto. Love it. Final question. I know we started late. We are going to stay, your panelists and myself, kind of to the left. So if you guys want to connect, we also all are on Instagram and LinkedIn. So happy to connect. One of my favorite things is helping people find their purpose, their passion, their jobs. And I am happy to do this for Breasties. And I imagine my panelists are happy to make connections and support.
If there's anybody from New Jersey that, you want to start advocating, really advocating, hit me up. We could do some work.
Love it. So to close us out, Liz, final question.
Okay, they told me to hold it real close, and that was too close. My question was actually very similar to the last one, so I'm going to pivot a little bit. I think as someone who is very type A, and I chose a career in production, very fast-paced, lots of stress. Going through my whole journey, I was very much like, oh, I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life. I gotta take it. I gotta prioritize myself. I went through a lot of guilt about the fact that a lot of what I do doesn't really mean anything. I'm like helping advertisers or brands sell products and push consumerism, and I had a real like crisis of conscience in what I'm doing. Fast forward 4 years, and I'm kind of right back in the place where I was before, but I've got this new insight that I actually love the stress a little bit. I love the pressure. I thrive on it. It's kind of addictive, and it makes me feel good when I'm kicking ass at my job. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on sort of balancing that desire to fully, like, live life fully and truly appreciate the world that we live in, rather than just make it all about our careers, but also I get the sense that some of you up here are also in a similar position where you thrive on that pressure. Any tips on how to balance those two sort of competing priorities?
So I will say I definitely thrive similarly to you. Like, even if I'm like, I don't know, doing housework or like anything I'm doing, I'm not just doing it. I'm like fucking doing it. Like, like my to-do list, I'm like checking things off. I'm like writing things down that I've done so I can like mark that off. And it feels like often that I'm like constantly in a sprint for no reason. Like, I'm creating my own sprint that is like my life. And so, and sometimes it's great. Like, that's what I need in that moment. I think it's about trying to figure out like when you can kind of slow down a little bit and rest and find that time. Like, for me lately, our son has been going to school like an hour or 30 minutes from our house. And my husband, we both work from home. He'll leave, and I'm like, this is my time where I'm going to lay on the couch for an hour. I'm going to watch TV. It's 3:00 in the afternoon, but I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And like, that's my time. And nobody's here to be like, why are you laying on the couch at 3:00 in the afternoon? But just finding those moments where you can just allow yourself to rest, because we all need it.
I agree. Yeah, that's good.
I feel like I'm talking.
Close us out.
So, shout out to our overachievers in the room. It feels good. Yeah, and if that's something that is, you found your passion, you found something that makes you feel good, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Your purpose doesn't have to be to be a yoga teacher in Bali, although we would all love that. That's okay. I love getting through a to-do list. I think it's about looking at when that. Firstly, it's great that you've identified something you love, but it's about looking at when that's harmful to you. Are you not getting enough sleep? Are you getting burnt out? Do you need to put some boundaries in place? Is it costing you other things, right? And that's important to understand when that's happening. But there's nothing wrong with thriving in that type of environment. It's great if you found something you're really passionate and it brings you a lot of joy, and I love that for you.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for joining us. I know we were cut short. Again, we're going to peel to the side, but we want to make sure the next panel can get started. But just want to encourage you all. I know we had time when they were getting set up for you guys to meet Breasties. I know sometimes you don't talk about your professional identity when you're here, and you don't have to. But if you want to and you're at this session, continue to network. Continue to think about that question that Michelle asked about your purpose. And just join me in a round of applause in thanking our panelists today and thanking all of you.